In that last lecture module, we saw the presentation in paragraph 2 of meditation 3 of this positive version of the justification principle. Here at the very last part of this quotation, all that is very clearly and distinctly apprehended is true. I can assent to whatever I clearly and distinctly judge to be the case. However, immediately upon expressing this principle, he brings up two significant problems with the principle, things that he has to address in order to use that principle. And the first thing we find in paragraph 4 here. But as often as this preconceived opinion of the sovereign power of God presents itself to my mind, I am constrained to admit that it is easy for him, if he wishes it, to cause me to err, even in matters where I think I possess the highest evidence. So the first problem that he notes is that, look, when I clearly and distinctly perceive something, it seems like it's absolutely certain. It cannot possibly be false. I cannot doubt it. And yet, when I think about those perceptions in light of my evil demon scenario, when I think about this omnipotent, all-powerful, omni-malevolent, superlatively evil being, it seems like this superlatively evil being can cause me to have these clear and distinct perceptions that are nevertheless not true. And so I need to find a way to guarantee that that isn't the case. So that's my first problem, that certainty doesn't seem to guarantee that the belief is true or that the judgment is accurate. What's the next problem? Well, the next problem is in this rather long quote from paragraph 6 about the nature of ideas considered in themselves. And so Descartes tells readers, with respect to ideas, if these are considered in themselves and are not referred to any object beyond them, they cannot, properly speaking, be false. And so ideas are just images. If we don't think of them in terms of what they depict, then they are neither true nor false. Thus, there thus only remain our judgments, in which we must take diligent heed that we not be deceived. So it's the judgments that give rise to error, or conversely, that give us true opinions. All right? But the chief and most ordinary error that arises in them, in my judgments, consists in judging that the ideas which are in us are like or conform to the things that are external to us. For assuredly, if we but considered the ideas themselves as certain modes of our thought, without referring them to anything beyond, they would hardly afford any occasion of error. So he says, when we think about our ideation, our experiences from sensation, if we don't think of them as depicting anything else, then it seems we're fine. But it seems, he says, that we have no guarantee, certainly no certainty, that those ideas, in fact, conform to anything external to us, that they give us any insight into the nature of an external world. And he thinks this is the most ordinary and common error that our judgments fall into. So he wants to deal with these two problems. And the first problem is the problem that he deals with first. The first problem, again, was this idea that even things that are clearly and distinctly perceived, even things that you are certain about, they could still be things about which you are deceived by this all-powerful and omni-malevolent evil demon. So he's going to talk about this special class of what you might call rational intuitions or judgments. And he says on paragraph 9, what the natural light shows to be true can be in no degree doubtful, as for example, that I am because I doubt, and other truths of like kind, inasmuch as I possess no other faculty whereby to distinguish truth from error, which can teach me the falsity of what the natural light declares to be true, and which is equally trustworthy. So he specifies this class of judgments that he refers to in this passage under the term the natural light. These are the clear and distinct perceptions. These are these things about which we are certain and cannot doubt. He says these things, they must be true. Why do I think they must be true? Well, there is no way that I could discover that they aren't true. There is no other form of judgment that I have available to me that could reveal them to be true and is at least as trustworthy as the natural light, as this faculty of clear and distinct perception. And so he says, pragmatically, from a realistic point of view, this is the best I've got. And so I must trust in it because I have no way of discovering that I am mistaken about it that is as credible as this. So the idea would be sort of like you can think of the natural light as a witness. And this witness is an impeccable, very reliable, highly regarded witness. And you ask yourself, okay, but there's still a possibility that the witness is wrong or lying or so on. So how do I know for sure? Well, I have to depend upon this witness because there is no other witness that is going to contradict their testimony and is at least as trustworthy as that original witness. And so because that witness is my best witness, I must put my faith in that witness. That's the metaphor for his pragmatic justification of the natural light. Next, he turns to his judgments about the ideas of experience. So he says, in considering the ideas of external objects, I conclude that they are modifications of my mind. Ideas of external objects seem to come independent of my will and possess a greater degree of perfection. They seem more completely real. However, considerations such as my diverse ideas of the sun illustrate that I cannot know how such ideas resemble their causes. So going back to that idea of the wax, right? I have these images, these ideas of visual perceptions, tactile perceptions, olfactory perceptions of the wax. And I know that they come to me regardless of whether or not I want them to. They are a train of thought over which I have no control. However, just because they are not caused in a way that I recognize as my own cause, that doesn't mean that they resemble the cause. And in fact, when I think about how many different ways the wax can appear to me, it can appear to me in a way that's completely different when it melts from the way it appeared to be initially. So I can't possibly make an inference about the resemblance between those ideas of sensation and objects, even if I suppose there are those objects out there. And so in paragraph 12, he tells us, and these things sufficiently prove that hitherto it has not been from a certain and deliberate judgment, but only from a sort of blind impulse that I believe the existence of certain things different from myself, which by the organs of sense or whatever other means it might be, conveyed their ideas or images into my mind and impressed it with their likenesses. So he says, it's more like a blind impulse that's caused me to believe in these objects in the external world, not a deliberate and certain judgment.